first of all, I just want to thank you for your time and efforts to make this interview possible. I know you have a really, really tight schedule a day before the Super Bowl. And, you know, we as LanXiong Sports, we are really thrilled and excited for this opportunity to talk to you. So
I want to
we
thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
I want to thank you. And most people aren't willing to get up this early, so I really appreciated it.
No,
I get lonely in the morning. There's no one to talk to, so this is perfect.
But yeah, we really appreciate your time for doing this. Thank you. So I just want to start with the question of, I know this is your 20th Super Bowl. A lot of people, you know, dreamed about going to Super Bowl once, but you've been 20 Super Bowls. So what is really the biggest difference that you've seen or experienced so far compared to the other 20th that 19 that you've been to?
You know, the biggest difference that I see right now is the transformation from traditional sports to digital sports. Okay. So that I see the NFL starting to realize that it's more than just the game, that this is a stage. And it's a stage that the world really wants to see. And if you look at the Olympics, for example, they've always done a terrific job of building up what that story is. And I think the NFL as an entity is starting to realize the necessity for all of the other events that may not even carry the brand of the Shield to it, but the importance of the self-promotion of all these different activities, experiences, parties, things that are going on are actually attracting or helping the Super Bowl, and sometimes may even be, I think, bigger and better and more talked about than the actual game.
And one of the questions or issues about the NFL is the ratings. We can't avoid talking about, you know, declining of the ratings. What is the number one issue or the biggest issue you think that the league should tackle in order to bring those fans back? I mean,
you know, we need to have more interaction between digital and traditional TV. I think more people watch the Super Bowl than ever, just not on TV. And I think it's very difficult to track who's actually watching and is aware of and the profile and the brand of the Super Bowl and the NFL. But they need to learn, how do we interact? So different things like polling during the game that can be utilized, you know, other activities, but it takes time. And so I think you'll see a continual decline in the TV viewership.
Right.
But there's still, because TV viewership is repurposed and utilized on the digital format, that's why the networks are paying so much money for the Super Bowl still.
Okay, that's actually my next question. I mean, you know, it's weird, like we see this declining, but the Fox just announced the new agreements with the league about the Thursday Night Football, 5 years, $3 billion. That's a lot of money. And was that decline? Can you just explain more about in that angle? Like, why is that?
So, and it's kind of where you see, we were talking about Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V.
Yeah.
What people are realizing is it's not necessarily just the event. It's the rights to the content, because you can repurpose the content into perpetuity and utilize that. So I can take last year's Forbes Inside Man of the Super Bowl video and article and you know, piece, that feature that they did on me, and I've used it here at Super Bowl 52.
Okay.
And so being able to repurpose and own the content, you know, from the network that can be repurposed and put into perpetuity, gives extended or even perpetual marketing and revenue generating opportunity. And so it's a completely different animal than just the televised version of what you see.
Now, is it still worth it for the market, for the brands to spend 30 seconds, $5 million on advertisements? On networks.
And that's a deeper question, because I believe that some brands, it's a bargain. So if you have an established brand that you want to raise the awareness or elevation, or you want to create some sort of buzz around that's an established brand, I think it's well worth it. I think if you don't have a following, so young companies, startups that think that just because they get a 30-second Super Bowl commercial that they're somehow going to immediately attract business, they're fooling themselves. It takes years of brand building. You know, companies like McDonald's and Coke and Bud, those substantial, you know, businesses, Geico,
Right.
well worth the $5 million.
Okay.
But the younger companies, no, not at all.
I mean, you're experts on sports marketing and branding, obviously. What are some unique values besides you just talked about, you know, reaching a huge amount of audience that only Super Bowl can deliver? There's no other, which means there's no other events can deliver.
And so, what's the biggest advantage?
Yeah, like the most unique value besides reaching huge amount of audience.
You know, it's the aspect of being a holiday. So, believe it or not, the Super Bowl is truly a holiday in the United States. I think it's more attended and more respected on a Sunday than almost any other holiday in America because it crosses over all cultures, religions, sexes, races, everything. It just merges us, and it's also a unifying national holiday.
Right.
And I think no other sport or event in America has nearly the effect of that holiday. And
Okay.
so I think it's so powerful that families all somehow, whether they're even knowledgeable about football, they attend the holiday and they participate in the holiday. And whether they're watching the actual game or not, they're participating in the conversations and the food and, you know, just the joy that's involved. And if you can learn, because people buy on emotion for logical reasons. So if you can learn to tie into the emotional aspect of that holiday, you can learn to monetize it.
You talked about the shift from cable network to digital content, the digital aspect. It seems to me that the rise of digital and streaming media seems like unstoppable. Like
Of
they're
course.
everywhere.
It
Right?
is unstoppable.
So, is there anything that cable companies can do to kind of compete with them or starting to catch up?
Yeah, so what they need to do is make themselves equal and then make themselves better. So they should start investing in the digital side because they still have the dollars, the access, and the content, the archive content that they own.
Right.
It's very important because you can run B-roll, perspective. We were talking about people buy on emotion for logical reasons. So they own that content. That content is very important. And you need to combine traditional with this new digital. And so if they invest in the digital side, they can compete, and they probably, as you'll see, will start acquiring some of the digital platforms that are out there because you want to combine the content that's needed with the access that the digital side has.
Who's the first mover you think is going to start doing that?
I think ABC.
ABC?
Yeah, I think because you know you have Disney, ESPN, ABC is a conglomerate that already owns digital properties. They also have a very young audience with the different content that they own.
Right.
So I think ABC will be the first one.
ESPN has its own like streaming media app already.
Yeah, and they're owned by ABC as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right.
Or I mean, Disney owns them all, really. Like, who knows which one owns them, but all that conglomerate.
Yeah, correct. In 5 years, just give us your prediction on if there's any other North American sports event surpass the Super Bowl in terms of its value and power and impact on marketing and branding.
I think esports. So,
Esports.
you know, the League of Legends or whatever, the hockey stick, the trends, you know, the mass audiences will get the idea that the actual event doesn't matter. It's what's happening around the event. You're creating a stage. No matter how big that stage is, that there's 3.2 billion people around the world that want to experience, attach to, and align, connect to that staged event. And so you'll see more and more of this transformation. I think esports is so popular and that it's so non-traditional that it's going to take a little while for the large companies to understand it, monetize it, but all the leaders in the sports industries are making investments. The Mark Cubans, the Leonidas, everyone that I know that has been involved in sports for years, and it's not just thousands of dollars, they're throwing millions of dollars into investment.
Yeah.
So I do think it's possible in 5 years. I mean, more people watch the League of Legends championship here than the NBA finals.
Even in America?
In America. So it is quite possible that someday, I'm not sure if 5 years is enough, but I think it's possible that more people will watch an esport event than actually the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because I mean, esports is extremely popular in Asia, in areas like China, South Korea. I don't know about like America. I feel like there is a trend, but like it's not as, I would say it's not as that popular as in China or in Asia. But it's good to hear that ESPN esports is the future. So I would like to have your opinion on. I mean, the league is expanding internationally. They've already had the games in England, Mexico. They will continue to doing that, I've heard. So from 1 to 10, how do you think about how urgent do you think is it for the league to expand in China?
I think it's urgent. So 9.
9?
Yeah, I think it's an untapped market. You know, there's a reason people love football. And I'll tell you, the only difficulty is teaching a culture football because it's a difficult, complicated game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if bowling was popular, it'd be quite easy to explain bowling in China.
Mm-hmm.
But football has a lot of depth to it. But what I think is going to be the key is Madden football, EA Sports. I have witnessed it myself. You know, my business partner is a Hall of Fame quarterback. That's the top quarterback in the world of all time. You can't get better. I have been in sports. I played all the way through college. I'm a student of the game.
Mm-hmm.
At 5 years old, I could not teach my 5-year-old football.
Mm-hmm.
The intricacies, the complexity of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Giving him that football game, EA Sport game, taught him the game so quickly. So I think that the more we can get the kids and people in China
Mm-hmm.
to play that video game,
Right.
the interest will be phenomenal. And the NFL doesn't have to actually have a game there yet. They should be investing in sending video games to China so they can learn the game first.
That's an interesting perspective. I think they should.
Yeah.
I mean, so Justin Timberland answered a question during the press conference about how the Chinese market can help the NFL, and he talked about it definitely helped with the merchandise. Is it only about merchandise, or there's any other values the Chinese market bring to the league?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so much PR and marketing help that they can give beyond merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a huge audience that can support every aspect of the game, including live games. As we start putting teams in places, destination cities like Las Vegas, and as you know, so many people from China visit Las Vegas.
Yeah.
They can even support, coming to the games. They can support every single aspect of the game. When you have a great product with that many people, how could it not?
Yeah, you talked about China is still a market where people have limited knowledge about the game of football, and that's the biggest problem. So how would you, if you are the marketing consultant for a brand, or for the NFL actually, I'm sorry, how would you suggest their marketing strategy adjust accordingly to expand what should their marketing strategy be in that typical market?
Right, so it's 3 different phases. One, they need to make an investment in a learning phase. And that learning phase could be utilizing the gaming industry, it could be utilizing past videos, instructional videos, webinars, sending legacy Hall of Famers over to teach the game. Yeah, exactly. So that's the learning phase.
Yeah.
Then you have an execution phase where you start having youth participate in camps. You have junior leagues established. You have people coming over, investing, in the different airlines that fly to the different cities to start promoting, so that when people come visit, they go to a game because they're interested and buy the merchandise and concession and all the things. We monetize it. And then finally, what we call the equity stage, which is what we're in America, where people actually take equity in the game, right? You'll see as you're here, it's live or die, for some of these Eagle fans and New England fans.
Yeah.
So the NFL, as a marketing consultant, I would teach them how to take advantage of the learning phase, the execution phase, and the equity phase.
How long do you think they can get there if they start doing it tomorrow?
If they started tomorrow, if they followed my advice,
Yeah, they follow
a lot
your
faster
advice.
than anyone else's. No, I'm kidding. Humbly, no. It takes a long time. It would take a decade.
Decade.
Yeah, because you have a generational thing. For example, in America, we're going to be we had such motivation, trend, inertia with soccer, football and European football, that we had such inertia. But now that we didn't make the World Cup, it's going to set us back probably 8 years, because you have a whole generation of youth that play the sport that aren't going to be, it's such a big deal, you know, to see where you can go. And so I think, you know, it's going to be at least a decade, but there's a lot of things that you can do to accelerate that learning curve.
You talked about football. Actually, that's my next question, because David Beckham just made announcements of the new MLS football team in Miami, and then I know you've just visited Miami because I saw the vlog of
Yes.
that.
So now, when we look back to the time he just joined the LA Galaxy, which is the first, I believe, he was the first major European soccer player who ever done that. What kind of value or change has he brought to the MLS and just the whole landscape?
You know, that was a genius maneuver. I saw it when they brought Wayne Gretzky to Los Angeles. It changed the whole face of hockey. You know, I mean, Canadians love Wayne Gretzky,
Yeah.
but he saved American hockey and maybe all of hockey. You know, in the past, you couldn't have had teams in San Jose, Tampa Bay, Los Angeles, Anaheim, all these different places. By bringing Wayne Gretzky to the NHL, people learned that we need to educate the market, excite the market, so you can take an individual celebrity like they do in the NBA, market the individual, which draws interest to the game and allows them to be educated. David Beckham has accelerated the learning curve, not only of the MLS, but of all of soccer. He was not only a sports hero, but he was a social media hero. He's also a marketing hero, and his wife in the music industry. So, you know, here's these beautiful people that live in Beverly Hills. He still was a great soccer player, and he was for a championship team.
Yeah.
And so it was extremely important that David Beckham came over and accelerated that. And now that he wants to be an owner, I think it's, you know, once again, like Derek Jeter owning part of the Marlins, it's going to have the same effect. It's just going to help people accelerate through the learning curve. And more importantly, I think with these legendaries, people take equity in David Beckham.
Yeah.
So if you have equity in David Beckham, you have that emotional attachment, you can monetize it.
So what do you think they're gonna do? Like, are they gonna do well in Miami?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
You know, just like in the Galaxy did very well in Los Angeles, because there's so much interest in the sport, and you have such a culture for the sport that it's only going to elevate the awareness and really, really, I think, help all of the MLS and soccer in general.
You talked about the star power, how important it is for a professional sports league. Which league, among 4 major sports leagues, you think do the best job on utilizing star power and through that to get the younger fans, the millennials?
NBA. No,
NBA.
no doubt about it. And the reason is you only have so many players, and you know what's really cool about NBA players. You know, you'll learn here at the Super Bowl that there's so many famous NFL players that you never know what they really even look like. That's why the endorsement dollars are so low. There's so many of them, but they're wearing helmets all the time. So usually, unless you're doing commercials or you're a quarterback, you know, the main player,
Yeah.
you wouldn't recognize most fullbacks, running backs, linemen. But NBA players are not only well known, but they're so tremendous in their stature
Yeah.
that even if you don't know who they are, when an NBA player walks by you, you're like, oh my gosh, he must be an NBA player. When LaDainian Tomlinson, the famous Hall of Fame running back, walks by you at 5'8" and he looks like me, you're, oh, he could walk right by you. It has its good and bad side, but by far the NBA has star power.
Now, starting from this year, 2018, 3 Olympic Games and 2 World Cups will all be taking place in Asia, in the continent of Asia. Some American sponsors and brands have already withdrawn from the Olympic sponsors, including McDonald's. Your thoughts on this phenomenon? Like,
For everyone that drops out, there's 5 or 10 or even 20 that are more interested because it's in Asia. This is a global economy, and if you don't think our economy is benefiting from that global economy, you're fooling yourself. And so any company that has alignment with Asia, that wants to either accelerate the learning curve, the execution, or the equity phases of what they're doing, they're foolish. But there are going to be big brands that it's not necessary to pay the money to elevate that awareness, and you'll see a few drop out, but you'll see many more jump on board.
last 2 questions. We see a lot of smart stadiums to be built. This one, US Bank Stadium, and Levi Stadium, the one in Atlanta, all that. What kind of values does those smart stadiums brings to the team and also taxpayers? Besides, it can enhance the fan experience, obviously, with other values.
So experiential real estate is the future of real estate in America. As retail declines, as you see the big box companies dropping out and empty venues in places, you have to understand experiential marketing is the key. Smart stadiums, the difficult part about building a smart stadium is that the technology moves too quickly when you're building them. And I'll give you some examples. For example, in the military, when we build a warship, it takes 17 years. So by the time the ship is done, they have to retrofit for millions of dollars all the technology because the technology that they budgeted for, purposed, and built is gone. I consult on many stadiums. There's a lot being built, and because I come from a technology background, and so I'm one of the few people that have excelled my career in technology as well in sports, which makes me a fairly good entrepreneur. But the same challenges exist for these smart stadiums because we have to have an experiential piece of real estate that people want to experience and then capture, repurpose, put into perpetuity, right? And monetize.
Right.
Well, even in the 3 years or 4 years in LA because of the rains that it takes, can you tell me today, if you were building a stadium, what technologies you'd put onto the screens? Right? It's difficult because I think the screens will be twice as good in 4 years. And so it's very difficult to procure. You have to keep an open-ended architecture. So some of the advice that I give is in each seat to keep a space that's empty that we can retrofit different attachments or access points or whatever. You have to stay open. Where in the past, when they were building these monstrosities for $2 billion, they were dedicating themselves to certain technology that was antiquated by the time it came in. So IR, VR, AR, all of these different things need to be utilized because the future of a stadium is that in order to get people to sit into that experience, if I'm sitting at the top corner, the cheapest seat in the house, I want to be able to, as they're driving down, hit the seat that I want to have a view from. And now you're talking about a whole different ball game. You get the electricity, the energy, the emotion of being in a stadium, and the best seat in the house. And so, building these stadiums, understanding technology, I don't call them smart stadiums. I call them open stadiums because you have to have an open-ended architecture to be ready for the technology that actually will exist when you finally get done with it.
Gotcha. Last question. I know you were doing a lot of projects on trying to inspiring the younger generation and inspiring a lot of people and training leaders, future leaders. I know recently you just launched your own WeChat, Weibo, and also Youku channels. Take us through the process of having an idea, starting these kind of projects, and the goals and objectives that you wanted to achieve through that.
As I've had success in America teaching values, and it's surprising, even at my company, people come in, they want to be sports agents, marketers, journalists, PR. We have editors and all type, media house. I learned that the only thing I need to teach is gratitude, forgiveness, empathy, accountability, and effective communication. And as I attain success in empowering others to empower others, to create all types of change, not just in America, but I'm doing a 50 for 50 campaign for my birthday, and I'm building a leadership and empowerment center in Africa so that the people that we have funded through the Unstoppable Foundation, 75,000 people have been impacted already. Well, now they need to learn to empower others as well. And so what better place to do it than the most populated place? I think, I believe in a collective belief. There is a major transformation going on around the world, especially in Asia. So utilizing the different content that I have, the access that I've been given through those platforms, and the different mediums that people watch it at, I went through and said, we have to start communicating, connecting to all the people in the world to empower them, to empower others, to have 4 core values: gratitude, empathy, accountability, and effective communication.
Thank you so much, Mr. Meltzer. That's it's a wonderful interview, and I really appreciate your time again. I think it's just unbelievable on your thoughts and insights on sports industry, and especially American sports industry. We really appreciate your this time and your question and your answers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in China.
Thank you.
Thank you.